Hello and welcome back to, not gonna say the Element 14 thing, to MakerCast. It's me, I'm hosting, and I have no idea what I'm doing, as always when I'm hosting. This is the second time. Hey everyone, I'm not alone here. I brought some of my clones over there. And I'm just gonna go through them quickly. Everyone say hi. We're gonna make us look like this. Or like, no, that's not really working. Right, so who do we have here in this fine group? We have Timon, Mr. Prof. Fart Sparkle. We have Mr. chunkysteveo, Steve.
Hello.
We have this wonderful round face that's spinning, Mr. Clem. MAYERMAKES, what are you doing?
Issues.
Clem is on mobile, so is Alex, and Timon has internet issues, so...
What? No, I'm good.
Let's just hope.
Perfect internet.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, no, he's gone.
Wonderful.
That's a bad omen.
Then we also have Alex, tinyledmatrix here. For the first time, a full-blown guest, I think. I think the last time you were on, you were sitting next to me. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. And then, kind of also special guest, first timer this time, Mr. Twinkle Twinkie, or Twinkie. So
just Twinkie.
Just Twinkie. Don't say just Twinkie. I said just Dave once, and from this day on, I was just Dave for at least Sion. So, hi Sion. Great. So that was a start. Right. So for anyone who hasn't watched MakerCast before, normally we just meet up and talk about some projects that we did for the last month, and well, we make kind of an exception for people that are on for the first time, so they can talk about any of their projects. So yeah, why don't we jump into this? And I think it's fair if we just select someone to talk about their projects that has been on before. So maybe Steven, is that okay for you if we start with you?
Yeah, sure. Then I can get out of this ridiculously hot jumper.
Yeah, that's a good decision. I'm gonna put you on the solo layout so we can enjoy that wonderful.
So I'm wearing this jumper and drinking from Santa's furry. No, I'm drinking.
Going full Christmas, I see.
Yes, because I have been digging out my Christmas lights, and I've been on AliExpress deciding what to do for this year. Every year, my fiance says it needs to be bigger. So she's talking about the lights. So I'm going to have to get some more lights in. What I'm doing is going with addressable LEDs, so all the outside lights are all covered in addressable LEDs, so it annoys the neighbors with loads of light shows. And I haven't gone full Griswold, if you can get that reference, but I have a nice modest set of Christmas lights that go all over my gutters and my conservatory, garage, and everywhere, and they all change. And being a maker and being a geek and loving a bit of DIY instead of going to the shop, we've done it all DIY, and it's all addressable. It's all accessible via Alexa. It's all accessible via Home Assistant and your phone. I can do it remotely. It's scheduled. It comes on. It goes on in the evening. It goes off at night, etc. So I've been doing it for, this will be the third year now. The reason I wanted to talk about it initially was just, if you've ever thought about doing it, is just to do it, because I tend to overthink a lot of projects. So thinking about doing your Christmas lights, as in like addressable LED Christmas lights, is I worry is like, what kind of strips do you get? What kind of lights do you get? Do you go your 5 volt, 12 volt? How am I going to do the controller? How am I going to control it, etc. But one year I was like, forget it. I'll just buy a couple of sets of lights. I'll hook up a Wemos D1 Mini and I'll do it that way. So that was the first year, and it was very stressful. Someone's coming in. I was even soldering on Christmas Day. Hi.
Are you joking? What the hell?
Hi.
Surprise guest.
She's just finished a. She's just finished a 14-hour shift.
14 and a
Oh,
half.
wow.
14.5-hour shift, saving lives.
Oh, geez, on a Sunday.
Wonderful.
So,
It was a 3-month shift.
okay. So
We clap for her.
everyone's clapping for you.
Thanks.
She's getting her refreshments. So where was I? Yeah, making lights. So this is how I've currently got them set up. So it is running off. So this is the controller box. This is, can you make me bigger? There we go. This is the controller box. So this is a 3D printed controller box. I've talked about this before on one episode, so you can whiz back, but I'm going to go over it again. And inside the box, if it focuses, come on, Logitech. No, yes, no.
Oh, it's okay. We can see.
Yeah, so it's a ESP01, ESP8266. Why is it not focusing? It's running off it's called a Pixel Pop. It's a custom circuit board that someone made to control all the Christmas lights. You can't get it anymore. They don't have the Gerbers or the files or anything. So I've had this in my Osp cart for years. And I just order them like 3 every year. It's really simple. You could go the Wemos D1 Mini route, but I had a bunch of these ESP01s just hanging around, doing nothing, and they run one string, so you only need 1 pin, which is what you get on an ESP01. It's got circuitry, so it seems it's not going to focus. Rubbish. It's got a voltage regulator to regulate the voltage. It's got a small transistor to do the level shifting, and then some various little buttons and capacitors to even out the voltage. So it's a real simple circuit, but it works really well, and it runs NeoPixels essentially. Runs WS2812s. However, for these Christmas lights, it's quite common to use these. So you'll see these on AliExpress. So these are WS2811s connected to an RGB LED. So these are the open ones. Hello.
Yeah, they seem to be very old school as well.
What, the cables?
Well, the whole thing, the PCB with the chip on it instead of the integrated stuff.
Yeah. I kind of. It's a case of I made my bed, and I'm going to sleep in it. So yeah, this was the thing. I was like overthinking everything. It's like, do I go Wemos D1 Mini? Do I? ESP32s were very new at that time, so they were like $10. Outrageous price of like $10 a board or something. And I had a bunch of these, so I kind of went with this system, and I'm kind of sticking with it. I'll probably improve it. I've got another 3 of these boards, and I've got another like 4 or so of the ESP01s. So I'm going to build 3 more controllers to control 3 more sets of lights, and then I'll probably look at upgrading. I know if you are looking for something better, who's he called on YouTube? Is it Intimate Tech? What's he called? Let's have a look. Intermit.tech. He's on YouTube. He's all about. Sorry? Yeah, he's all about.
Right now.
He's all about ESP. He's all about addressable LEDs and LED lighting. He's got his whole home set up, and he creates these. He calls them Digi Unos and Digi Analog. It's basically a controller board that you plug a WeMOS or a ESP32 dev board in. They're really high quality. They've got the right fuses, the right logic level shifting. If you want to get something serious, get one of those. He does like a quad version, so you can have like 4 strings off one controller and manage it all. They're a lot better. But yeah, I made my bed, and god damn it, I'm going to sleep in it.
So your controller can control 1 string of LEDs, right?
Yeah. So let me, without spoiling the surprise. So this is one.
Oh, there's going to be a surprise.
Oh, there's a surprise. This is one that's running. So you got a power. You got these 2 pigtails. So you got a power cable, and then you've got the actual data cable that goes out. So these are all. Where's he at? So these are all waterproof cables. Again, got them all off AliExpress. BTF lighting on AliExpress. They're a really good NeoPixel and LED. I don't know if the manufacturer or reseller. They seem to look like the manufacturers from their videos. But they've got everything. You know, they've got the cables, they've got the connectors. They've obviously got all the strips and LEDs. And the most common one for outdoor lighting are these like little black cabled WS2811 with an RGB. So when you get them all lit up, they look something like this. Let's just turn the. now I look Christmassy. Look at that. So this is a controller running, I think it's about 70 or so lights. There we go. This is just running through like a rainbow. So these are when they're clear, you get kind of like a bullet shape. So they have like this epoxy.
That's the watertight version, right?
They what, sorry?
They're watertight, right? It's like in an epoxy.
Yeah, that's right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, so it's all enclosed. It's all waterproof. Yeah, they're really robust. So that's them. Well, look quite good here, don't they? Sorry about that. So I went with those. Seeing as I'm on a full one, so these are I got these as well. These are like indoor versions, so they haven't got the epoxy on, but they're quite good to actually have a look at. Let's see if this little sucker will focus. It's not going to do it, is it? No.
Yeah.
It was working when I was testing this. You could see the actual chip. So it's a WS2811, which is that's the actual chip that controls, and it's just a basic RGB LED. So everything within this chip is what is now miniaturized onto the WS2812s or similar, or the SKs. I'm sure Alex can agree. They get very small indeed. It's incredible that they can have that little package miniaturized into something so small. So that's them. So that was one set. So I've got 3 sets from last year. I went with, I spoke to a bit loony. He's on. He's going to get excited now. He's going to start listening. With his ping pong balls. So here's a version with
Nice.
which are all ping pong balls. Wow, that's really bright. Yeah.
Beautiful.
They're really blown out. That's quite funny. They look a lot nicer. This is trouble with LEDs. Trying to convey how good they look on video is very hard.
Yeah,
So these are just ping pong balls. So I think I used a Dremel. It's got like a little grinding stone, which happens to be about 10 mil. And I just sat in the kitchen and drilled, and I got, God knows what I got covered in, some toxic Chinese chemical dust. But I got them all done. I've ordered some more for this year. I don't know, maybe get like a pole. These are very twinkly when you look at them. And when they're on the roof, they're very like Christmas lighty. Whereas these are very, very subtle. They're nice to look at. They're very warming and homely. But I'm in 2 minds. I don't know who prefers actually like twinkly lights or some very subtle globes.
I like subtle.
Yeah. So I've ordered more ping pong balls. Well, quite good here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do some more ping pong balls. I've got 3. So I've got a bunch of more strips coming. If you want to learn more about like the actual WS2812 strips, the differences, the actual strips that you get, like the reels compared to these ones, Rob from the Hookup, he's on YouTube. He's got loads of brilliant videos where he actually goes through like the power consumption, the voltage drops, pros and cons. If you actually want to get into, which one to choose, he's got some awesome references, videos. So that's it. Controlling it. So yeah, these all sit out in my guttering and on my conservatory and up on the top. So I'm on like a three-prong ladder in the freezing cold, setting all these up. The control boxes, I'm going to turn my lights on. Close your eyes. The control boxes, they live outside, so the power cable gets fed through, like a window that's on a latch or through a door, and these just live outside. The 3D printed case is it's available on Thingiverse. It's a parametric one, customizable everything box by Mc7. It's just a parametric. It's just a box, a 3D box, but he's done like a parametric version, and you can download this in SCAD, I think. It's supposed to be waterproof. It's not very waterproof. I tried putting silicone, like a silicone bead, but it never set in time. So I just got this absolutely disgusting mess of a box. So that's a task for this year, is to reprint these. I made them as small as I could, and they have this very handy little notch which just fits the ESP01, but it's really fiddly trying to get these cables in. So I'm going to make a bit longer ones just so there's more room for me when I'm stressing at the top of the ladder. And I'm probably going to do them in black just to make them a bit more less obvious. But yeah, a bit of silicone, 4 screws, and they last. These have lasted like a couple of years out in the horrible British winter, full of rain and wind. They've never failed. They've never rusted or got wet. So I'm happy with those. Don't stress about how do you waterproof them. There's solutions out there. They're pretty good. And yeah, controlling them. So I think we spoke about this on the last one, was like a firmware for the ESP3266 called WLED. This is like the go-to addressable LED controller that a lot of people go to now. It's very feature rich. You can do timers, you can do segments, you can split up your strips. So if you've got like a strip that goes across 3 gutters, you can split them up into like each one, but it's a single strip, but it'll act like 3. It's got effects, colors, and it syncs. So I'm just going to, in fact, I'll tell you what I'll do. Yeah, I'll see if this will work. Right, so this is one on one controller. Imagine this is in my gutter at the front of the house, and this is another one on another controller. Oh god, it's going wrong. It's like that bus display. So this is one on one controller, this is one on the other, so they're completely separate. So I've got them synced up using WLED. Oh wow, I thought about this, didn't I? So if I change the effect on one, let's go for police. Ooh, and they both change. Magic. So this could be all controlled through your phone or through Alexa or through Home Assistant, or it's got MQTT. It has I forget the name. Is it DMX? The broadcast appropriate lighting protocol. You can use these for, if anyone's into, it's like Vixen and doing the actual light shows. You can override and use WLED. It's really good. That light up beard. Ooh, there we go. So completely separate. Just going through the Wi-Fi. All you got to do is control one, and it syncs with the rest. So I'm going to have 6. So I'm all around. You can imagine like turning on 6 lights, going around, switching them all on, setting all the features on. It's all synced. Put the schedule, it comes on, it goes off. Don't have to think about it. Just eat some mince pies and drink your beer.
Pretty cool.
And that's about all she wrote.
Are you planning on syncing it to music and have this like very cliche thing?
Yeah. So again, this was the whole. I was overthinking everything. So I was like, I really want, because if you've seen those videos on YouTube where they do all the music and the lights and everything flashes and dances, it's like, wow, that would be so cool. Literally, it's using all this hardware. But I was just stressing out so much to do it. I was like, I really want to do that, but again, it's kind of like running before you can walk. So I'm slowly building up to it. So the first year I had like 2. Last year I had several, and they're all synced and they're all working. It was all Home Assistant. So this year I'm going to have more. And then maybe next year, I think it's called is it X-Lights and Vixen? So you get like a Raspberry Pi that runs like a show, and that will broadcast out.
Nice.
What's the name? What's the name of it? What is it? Sync interfaces. I've got it right. DMX. Yeah, DMX. That sends out all the light show protocols. So yeah, don't hold me to it. Don't hold me to anything on this because I never get anything done. But yeah, maybe next year I'll have some kind of music or some kind of show. But yeah, if you're worried about doing it, just get on AliExpress, because I'm doing it now as well. Because it takes it can take like, for UK it's about 2 to 3 weeks, but it can be more delivery. So yeah, if you actually want to get some Christmas lights set up, get online and get them ordered now. Otherwise, you're going to be stressing out, like I was Christmas Day soldering.
The first one to post affiliate links wins.
Yeah. Someone said put them on my head as well. That would have been a lot better. Oh yeah, that's way better.
Wonderful. You have to stay like that for the rest of the year. All right. Oh, great. Someone screenshot that, please.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And he is here, isn't he? Intermitech. He said E131 is the actual light protocol. Speak to that guy. He knows way more than I do. I'm just following his videos.
Cool.
I'm going to stop talking.
Great. So I'm gonna, since we got Clem back and he's been there for a while, I think we should. You should be next, Clem.
Yeah,
I hope
looks like
that doesn't jinx something.
My internet is pretty much on point. So I'm fast, and this time I pretty much, I don't have a spoiler, but I worked like today on the demonstration of the latest project that I worked on, which is also to be released on Element 14, of course. And I had some very weird and some very nice results. So I wanted to show the results, not the device that it has been done with, but it's pretty much, it's very easy. You all will exactly know what it's doing. So I was thinking about plating parts that I made. And the first thing with plating is like electroplating. And that works great with a lot of different metals. And I also wanted to try out plating weirder stuff, because everybody does metal plating. So what I did today is, this here is a copper-plated wooden dowel. If I can get that in focus.
Focus isn't working tonight.
No, not really. But okay, copper-plated wooden dowel. And then I tried to plate one of these rubber duckies. So it's basically what I did is galvanizing. So I made a little galvanizing machine. Project video file and all of that is coming. Will take a little while, but you'll get a full video on that. So I tried to electroplate a rubber ducky, and that's very flexible. So yeah, witness my first attempt.
Very Halloweenish.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's nightmare fuel.
He's a hero. He suffered for all of that.
For science.
Yeah.
He has seen things.
He has seen horrible things. Yeah. So
you should swap that on your head.
Yeah, actually, that's the new one. Yeah, you will go up there later. So yeah, I've covered, like, that's the original rubber ducky. It's like I bought this for, I don't know, a few cents per piece in bulk. And as you may have noticed, I have a few of those. And yeah, then I covered him in what it's called, a graphite lacquer from Contact Chemie. It's like graphite spray that you use for electrical contacts and stopping squeaking doors, something like that. And it's conductive. So if you spray something with that material, it's like a very bad spray paint. So compared to normal spray paint, it's horrible. It's thick and it's blobby and pretty messy. But if you have a coat on there, you let it dry and then you rub it a little bit, then it looks like somebody has drawn with a pencil because it's graphite, and it gets pretty shiny. And when you have done that, the surface is conductive. And for electroplating or galvanizing, you need a conductive surface. That is what I did. And then I put this in a copper sulfide bath that you can make for next to no money, because copper sulfate is cheap as chips, and you just need some distilled water. And the duck just has pooed some copper sulfate on my hand, which is not toxic, no problems here. And then I put this little fellow in, and it kind of worked. So you can see here there's a pretty decent amount of copper. But on other pieces it like rubbed off, didn't stick to the surface. And this side here, it's like a little bit molten. That's because when you do electroplating, you put a lot of current through a tiny amount of liquid and tiny parts, and it tends to heat up, and it got over, I think, I don't know, 60 degrees Celsius. So I couldn't touch it with my finger anymore. It was too hot, so the ducky started to sag. So that was my first attempt. He's a hero for all of the ducky kinds, and we will always remember him. And then I added googly eyes for good measure. So, and now to get serious, and then I used not the graphite. Oh yeah, and I also used the graphite stuff on this thing here. Oops, that's a low poly banana designed by Dave Darko. And ever since he designed that, I saw that on our Discord, and I immediately stole the file, or I downloaded it and paid him tribute, and 3D printed a lot of these bananas. And so now I have them all around me. It's in PETG. And then I started to add graphite lacquer to that one. And yeah, the results were not the best, but here's a copper plated low poly banana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's already getting very oxidized, so it's a lot darker now. And after that, I started to think about copper plating is all nice, but we want to have shiny things. So I don't know if you can see that good on the stream, but this is a low poly Dave Darko banana covered in copper and then gold. So there's real gold on there. And yeah, and the best thing about it is that gold came off a 1970s transistor. So I used parts with gold contacts and a gold electrolyte, and so the electrons or the particles, so to speak, come from the old transistor, from the gold plating on there, go into solution, and the ones from the solution go onto that part. So there's like real gold on a Dave Darko banana.
That's cool.
And the next thing I wanted to do is here I have like that's reclaimed gold from electronic scrap. So now I'm trying to like get a system where I can use old components that I don't use anymore and reuse them for electroplating parts, for new projects. Yeah, that worked
cool.
pretty good. I got a little bit overboard on that one cost-wise, and also I used 24 volts, and apparently 2 to 3 volts is enough. So that was pretty fast. And the problem is if you don't, you need the liquid to cool down the parts when you galvanize with 24 volts, because it gets so hot that the part melts.
Electroplasting.
If you don't, yeah, and if you don't submerge it fully, you get a little fire on top. So you have, yeah, that's what happens. And it happens. It doesn't happen in copper, but it happens when you do gold. So, and after I got that figured out, then I did another attempt with the duck, and this time I used iron paint. So you can get like an iron solution suspended in some, I don't know what it is. It's called Modern Options, and it's used by model makers mostly to make natural weathering. So you put the iron paint on there, and then you use different acids, and that gives real rust on like models. And you can use different kinds of acid to give different effects. You can also use that on, I don't have the thing right here, but I 3D printed a little Cthulhu statue in copper filament, and then used the acid on there, and now I have, it looks like it's ancient. And you can do the same thing with that. So I've put the iron paste on, and then I galvanized that ducky again. And now it's a ducky in iron and copper. And then
like
you may
stone.
notice that there are some light sparkles on there. And that's because I after I had so much success with covering the little duck in copper. Oh, and by the way, it's like squishy and it doesn't come off. That's the best thing about it. I was very worried that it wouldn't hold the plating, but it's actually like you can do whatever you would do with a normal rubber duck, and it still holds up. It's really good.
Squishy metal.
Yeah, it's still squishy metal. And yeah, and these little sparkles here, I was so pleased with the outcome that I wanted to preserve the look of the copper, because it oxidizes really fast. So that was like really shiny when I took it out, and now in like 4 hours or something like I did on the air, it became pretty dark. And I wanted to preserve that and try to wanted to apply a clear lacquer to it, a spray paint, and I got the wrong can and put sparkly primer on there. So that's why it has these little sparkles on the front. So I may make another one, but that one is the duck that worked, and it's working really good. And now I'm the next step in the project. So like that's the status that will be published in the first video, and I hope to get that like that process a little bit more figured out, and then have like I noticed that depending on, or I noticed you can read up on that in some forums and stuff, but you can basically calculate how long and with what values you need to galvanize stuff to get it perfect. And there comes the idea. It certainly is totally off for parts that I don't reckon with, like plastics and other stuff. And it's on my fingers. Yeah, it's totally off for that. But basically, what I could do is like modify a slicer or a similar program like CureEngine to determine the settings that you would need for such a part to galvanize it. So basically, like putting your STL files in, you get the exact values, 3D print that, put it into the galvanizing machine, and then you get a perfectly plated part. That's the idea behind it. And yeah, if I can pull that off, that would be awesome. But I'm like still in the beginnings of it. But the first results are pretty pleasing. And I may have the only golden Dave Darko banana now.
Yeah, I'm super jealous.
Yeah, and if it wouldn't be COVID times, then I would bring you that to Maker Faire or somewhere else where we can meet up. But I'm pretty sure I either I give you that one or I make you a new one.
I mean, technically, the banana wouldn't be if there wasn't COVID, because I was very bored on a Friday evening and I did that. So, yin yang. But yeah,
you
there was
win
a
some, you
question in the
lose some.
Yeah. There was a question in the chat, and I probably know the answer, but does the duck still swim in water?
Yes.
Does it float?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It does.
So, can you tell us, like, why you did that, the project? Was there something you had in mind?
Are you starting like all the commenters that need to have a reason for building something? Okay, so because
I'm
it's
just
fun,
asking
okay?
if there was a
there's
reason.
this concept about building projects that are just fun and you just want to know if that works.
I have no idea what fun is. I'm
Now,
German.
the thing is that I started with this project because I wanted to do some galvanizing, and I hate nothing more than having like a power supply and cables in there, and then I need to like obey some things before everything blows up and unplug stuff. And I made like an Arduino controlled thing that I just push a button, it does the galvanizing, and it stops when it has overcurrent and stuff like that. I don't have to think about it. I can set it to different values. I can push and release the button quickly, and that makes it very easy to experiment around with different stuff. And that's what I used on this, and that is what the project revolves around. Hard word.
Right.
And yeah, it makes it easier to experiment, and when I found the right values for certain tasks, I may be able to automate that. And the thing that I wish for it at the end would be something like a little device where you can just put in the thing that you 3D printed and it will work every time.
That's cool.
Cool.
That would be
So
cool.
something similar that you can do with that is I once did that, I think it's 6 years ago, or we bought little tin cans and then we ironed on toner transfer stuff, and then you could use electricity in salt water.
Yeah,
and
electronic etching.
Rip out metal. So yeah, right. Electronic etching. That's the word I was looking for.
That's also one of the applications for it. I also tried anodizing, but it turns out my power supply is way too weak for that. I get to the temperature, it's no problem, but it's a lot too weak. So maybe for a next iteration could be possible.
Nice.
Something that I also tried, it's not electroplating, but for like, I was a bit too off-put by the work that goes into that, but I wanted to make gold onto copper like you. And you also get, for the lazy people like me, this is like 2 mixtures, and for chemical gold plating, which works actually quite well. Yeah. So you can use that on anything copper-based, basically. So for
I've got
it's a bit expensive, like $50 altogether.
Yep.
Yeah, they're cool.
Like the other one, it's from the same company that you bought your stuff from, that I made for the banana. That's like 25 euros for the little thing and 50 for the bigger one. You can do quite a lot with that if you don't spoil it. So I did something wrong, and now I have a solution that has it has gold in it, it has a lot of copper in it, and I think nickel. So I don't know if I can reclaim that, but yeah, if you do it right, you can get pretty far with that. It's in the total amount, it's not that expensive if you know what you're doing. If you're like me, it gets expensive.
Well, you have a sponsor for that, right?
Yes.
Golden Duckies, presented by Element 14.
Now I've actually for the part I need to get stuff approved, and it just went over top. And I've like calculated in nothing for the chemicals because I have a lot of chemicals in stock, and like copper sulfate doesn't cost anything. It's cheap as chips. But then I bought that electrolyte, and then the gold, and then the other stuff, and that's not sponsored. That's my money. But yeah, that's experimenting.
Nice. So, did you have anything else to share? Or should we go on to the next one?
Yeah. Not really. The only thing is I recently started to play around with these ESP32S2s and tried out the CDC USB port, so the native USB port. And for all of that was wondering, that's now working in Arduino. And of course with the ESP IDF thing. But now it's easy. So if you are about to dive into that microcontroller, now is pretty good time. And also Xeon has released his Feather S2, so that's probably the best way to get started.
Nice. Xeon, that's your cue to drop in the link in the chat, I guess. Also in the chat, I see James. I have to say hi, James.
Hi, James.
That's our thing in the hackerspace. All right. Yeah, cool. So let's continue.
Do you like my lighting show?
It's awesome.
Oh yeah, I like the pink and the blue.
I've gone with the Avengers. Yeah, teal and orange. This is like a movie.
That's nice. That's always good. Orange and green works too. But yeah. All right. So anyone who feels like he could be next? Or should I just point at someone? I'll point to. Yeah, we're pointing to Alex. Let's go with Alex, and I'm gonna find Alex in my overview, and now he gets the solo layout.
Okay. One thing I was recently working on is this one, and I should put it here. Oh, better there. There's the dark background. Yeah. And this is a project which is a little bit different to my other projects because normally I do mostly PCB stuff, but this time it's gotten more like free wiring. I can show it here. Wow. Oh, this is
wow, that's cool.
This is actually working. This dual camera setup. Okay, basically it's just discrete LEDs inside of little printed things. Yeah, and a lot of hot glue.
Oh, and is there hot glue?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, I have a second one here.
I shouldn't hot glue chain. I'm very sorry.
I'm using these transparent printed parts here. And basically I sticked LEDs on the back and wired them all up and yeah, used a lot of hot glue, and they came out on the back. They get connected to here or to this Arduino. And basically what this is, it's a clock. It's called Berlin clock because the original is standing like in Berlin. It's like 10 meters high.
I have
and really
never
big.
seen it.
Yeah, it's quite
That's a
funny.
lie.
Because,
I've never seen it.
yeah, it's somewhere around Kurfürstendamm.
Oh yeah, right.
So yeah, it's in West Berlin. And
right, sorry for the interruptions.
Basically, how you read it, it blinks every second. This is now faster than original. And basically, the lower two rows shows minutes, like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. These are 5 minutes. And the same with the top row with hours. And yeah, so you can sum up your time in this way. And I quite like this design, and it's an challenge to do 3D print everything.
It looks pretty clean, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, this was before my printer destroyed itself.
Oh no! What happened?
I crashed the nozzle into the heated bed.
Ooh.
Classic.
So what broke though? Was it the nozzle or was it the heated bed?
The heater on the heated bed got a disconnect.
That is a deep. That is a deep.
Yeah, basically it was a Prusa Mark II, and there's only this foil on top of the basically PCB wire, and the foil was already a little bit broken, so it was quick to reach.
Ouch.
So another thing I could show off here is this one. This is a little bit more the stuff I do normally.
It's so small.
It's quite small. Do I have something for size comparison somewhere?
You need a banana.
A 3D printed poly banana.
Ideally gold plated.
Let me fix that for you. Enhance.
Those are tiny.
And basically this as
What are these LEDs for ants?
this lightning is not helping.
Just hold your hand over it.
Oh no.
There it goes.
Yeah.
What size were those LEDs?
And these are 04 02s, not the smallest ones. And this is based on a product I saw on Twitter and Tindy before. Basically, Lixi Labs makes these ones with the LED matrices. Yeah, right. And this is like the one PCB copy of it, and it's quite convenient for me because now I can make a project without writing any firmware because I can just copy the firmware. Yeah. And
Whoa.
something which is also quite funny in this regard, I made this test jig for it. Where you can basically also 3D print it. I have this Poco pins connecting to it.
Nice.
Very
And then
nice.
This is like
Sweet chick.
you can unplug it here. Yeah. This is like, it's also the first time I used JLC PCB for assembling. And it was, I tried to do that because all these LED, I did this size before by hand. I can do that, but like I have now like 10 of these by 10 times 70 LEDs. It takes some time. And they did it quite good.
So how many boards did you order from them assembled?
10 assembled.
10. Right. And what did you pay for the 10 boards with parts?
With parts, I think it's ended up like $4 for one board.
It's super cheap.
It's quite cheap, but one thing to note is there was one IC which was not available on the stock, on the part stock.
Oh,
You can
that's
see
why
it
it's
there. The
Right.
I need some pointer thing, but maybe you can see it well. This QFN here, it's missing on the one, and I had to solder them myself. It's nevertheless all the LEDs were already on, so it's quite handy.
So was it a chip that they just never have in their shop, or was it just something that they would have to have waited for 6 weeks or something?
No, they don't have it. It's like this fancy ISSI LED matrix drivers, and they're quite difficult to get. Basically, you can order them on DigiKey and Mauser, but not from the Chinese.
So the lesson to learn is when you start something like this, you should use chips from the start that LCSC offers, I guess.
Yeah, or maybe not like the super special Western chips, more common chips or Chinese chips.
Yeah. It's super cool.
Yeah. And I basically did that as a test run for another thing I'm working currently on, which is maybe a candidate for my first Hindi product. Maybe.
Finally.
Yeah, I still, it's not ready yet, but if it's ready and if they can pick and place it in China, I will probably put some on Tindy. For these matrices, I will not sell them because they're more or less a copy of an already existing product there.
Right.
Another thing, talking about Tindy, was, or is this?
Yes.
It's also
I
a
know
little
it.
bit of cross promotion. Some of you may recognize it. I earlier like 1 month, 2 months ago, Bleeptrack published a product on Tindy, which is basically this little keyboard thingy.
It's the Pico Planet.
Pico Planet, yeah. I make myself smaller. And
Designs left. Yeah.
when I got
Can you still buy one?
I think the second batch is still in stock.
And they sold
There
out.
are 2 left. It's design number 9. Let me check if that's one with. Yeah, it is.
And they're gone.
And
They sell like
that's
And
awesome.
I normally don't like PCBs sitting directly on my table, so I created this little, I may call it a frame because it's framing artwork, basically. It's not a case,
nice.
it's more a frame. And yeah,
A bumper.
yeah, but the bumper is for a phone, not for art.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's a frame. I like that.
This is
And-
it is art. It's beautiful.
I did a little bit experimenting. I first tried this blue Galaxy color, but yeah, it's basically the same color as the PCB itself, so there's no contrast. I really like this golden color.
Yeah.
But
I also designed something like this for the Bleeptrack thing. Mine is closed on the bottom, but I also printed in gold because I like the contrast of your
Yeah.
design.
the gold is quite nice. You can find this on Bleeptrack's GitHub now because I did a push request to that. So it's
Great.
basically all there. Yeah. I think that's more or less everything.
Cool. So I'm gonna very
Put the frame on so we can see how it looks. What's this comment at all, probably.
the frame.
Maybe one additional thing, because there was a question in chat before about 1515 SK6812s.
Mm.
These are one.
It's so tiny.
That's
Is that your design?
my
Maniac.
design. It's half a year old now. It's basically based on, this is a feather wing. There's an RGB feather wing from Adafruit, but with a lower pixel density, and this is like the high definition version of it.
I have that here actually.
Is it a wing or is it
It's a wing. There's a
Oh, it has-
feather under it right now. So
Okay.
it's 22
Very cool.
by 9. And it's, because it's running all this Adafruit stuff, this is the GFX library example running on it
Right.
out of the box.
super nice? So why aren't those on Tindy? Like, how much would it be to make those?
Yeah, what's your problem?
By
Assembling. The LEDs are also quite expensive. I think they're like 20 or 30 cents each.
Ooh.
And
I've
then
seen
I
them,
need like
It's
and I
extremely
need,
expensive.
need like an hour of work to assemble it, and yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean, if you do the assembly with JLC, PCB, and LCSC,
yeah, I need to find some Chinese which this LED in stock. So maybe I should talk to Maker Fabs.
yeah, I heard Brian Locke, just basically praising them a lot.
Got them
Yeah,
all
he
hooked.
speaks really highly of them.
Oh, the chat is asking for a piece of paper on it. Where is some paper?
Oh, you can read all that.
So how many LEDs is that?
22 by 9.
What's that? 120. Yeah.
Someone asked their digital assistant, please. There's the solo layout.
198.
Of course.
Yeah, its diffusion is not working good. Yeah. It could get a little bit diffused by paper, but I could bring it on
Right.
the other camera if maybe.
I don't think that works with that big blob
No,
of light. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too wide. Yeah.
And also, you get some smudges on your lens. You failed the quality check. Should have done that. I was too worried about mic levels this time. All right.
Okay.
Cool. So I say, yeah, Timon is next.
Okay. I think Clemens is gone.
Yeah, Clem just dropped out because, yeah. Oh, it's just Timon.
I didn't do that much actually this month, but I could start with a small thing that I did just today, actually. See if that works.
Yeah.
I upgraded my 3D printer. And
Ooh.
not
That's
terribly exciting, I guess. So that is the Cetus. And I upgraded that from the Mark II to the Mark III, which comes with a new PCB and a lot of new bells and whistles. So it didn't have a heated bed before. After I was done with this, it has now, and like auto leveling, new limit switches. But something went wrong actually, because for these like do-it-yourself upgrades that they offer, you have to print a few parts that you can see lying around here. And if you can, yeah, it's very blobby here, but this tiny little part here, I printed that in the wrong direction. So when I tried to screw that into the place where it was supposed to, it just snapped off. Which is, of course, annoying when you started already to disassemble your only 3D printer. So I went total overkill and I milled it. The not good finish, but it's from solid HDPE, which is very rugged. It's not actually a very crucial part. It just can show you in the next picture. It just holds the carriage basically. So it screws into the belt here and then holds onto the little carriage of the linear rail. But still, I didn't want to have a half-broken thing in here, because if that snaps during a print, that didn't that. So then here it is now fully assembled. I haven't printed yet, but it seems to be all working. Yeah, there was a little thing I did today. A little larger project that I worked on this month or last month is a USB hub, which is not at all finished. But I also did my first solo live stream on YouTube with that, trying to stream the layout. Guess I can show parts on a blank surface. But I could actually maybe talk a bit about why I'm doing something like that, like a USB hub. That I think it's not the most exciting project probably, but I work with a lot of like USB devices, like native USB, and like in hobby and at work actually. And I'm always annoyed with USB hubs. Like they are always quite garbage. At least the ones that you get from Amazon, like they're in the like 10-20 euro range. You get some decent ones, but they then are like this industrial for like machines USB hubs that cost you like 150-200 bucks. I was always annoyed that you never get like something in the middle where you don't need 500 kilovolt isolation and whatnot. So So, and I wanted some, small bells and whistles that you don't usually get on a consumer hub. So I started my own design. And it's mostly pretty basic. It's a USB 2 hub because I mostly work with USB 2 devices that are low speed or high speed, full speed, never actually high speed. And USB 3 hubs actually have quite a few bugs, especially on Linux. So if you have like a lot of devices plugged into one hub, Linux just decides to throw out random devices for no good reason, actually, because it thinks that the bandwidth of the whole hub has been already like taken up because each port is already like full. And it's not really true because you have like low speed devices on there. I don't know why that is. It's been there for like 7 years, that bug. It never got fixed, but yeah, essentially why I don't really like USB 3 hubs. And it's hard to get actually USB 2 hubs by now. So that was another reason why I started that. And one or two nice things that are maybe not so standard is I added a few headers, which you can maybe it's better see on the layout. And they have two purposes. One is that you can stack them, not just for like physical stacking, but to also it is a 7-port USB hub. You get exposed 6 of them, and the 7th port then goes to the header. So the next hub that goes on top of it doesn't need an extra USB cable going to your computer. That, of course, doesn't scale infinitely, but if you only have like a bunch of microcontrollers on there, you can actually stack up quite a few of them. And the other idea why I wanted to have like a little header for you, one of the USB ports, is so you can have like sort of a shield that you can put onto your USB hub. I asked on Twitter of what some people wanna have for like a USB hub that is like true to their wishes. And some answered that they wanted like a X device being integrated, like a USB to UART or a USB debugger for their microcontroller or whatever. And because everyone will have their own kind of like device that they want to have in there, I thought it might be nice to have like a kind of a shield system for your USB hub where you can just nicely integrate a little USB device.
Wow, that would so be. Oh, that would be so cool. All the clutter gone.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a niche for this. And then
There is for sure.
thanks. I'm actually thinking about maybe putting it up for sale if there's enough interest. Definitely want to produce it. So another thing you can is a dual footprint thing. So you have USB 2A and USB-C. And I'm not sure like if that was going to be a product, how I would approach it. But essentially you could choose during manufacturing or soldering what kind of connector you want to have on here. And you can just mix it up too if you want. Which I think is kind of nice because at least me, I'm using a lot of USB-C devices by now, and you cannot buy that. You cannot buy just a normal USB hub that offers you USB-C host ports. It just doesn't exist I'm not sure why, actually. But I think it's because most people have their USB-C ports on laptops. And there you kind of expect that it can also do HDMI and USB power delivery and like be this all-purpose port that these are just not. So maybe that's one of the reasons. One more thing is that you can dump a lot of power in here. So by default, it adheres to the USB specs by having current limiting switches here. But you can solder a jumper here, and you can here inject power through either another USB-C or via screw terminals. And at that point, it wouldn't be USB 2 spec adherence anymore, but I don't personally care. So if you want a USB device that takes up 5 amps, you could, in theory, do that, which is kind of nice for those people who know what they're doing or half know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I intended that here. So
I planning to add any Molex connectors, like the ones you have on the mainboard? How did that happen?
Which one do you mean? Like there are a lot of those Molex PC connectors, like those chunky 4-wire.
Yeah, exactly. The ones that you have on the power supply for your main board and stuff like that.
Go into the like GPU and stuff.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, I can add actually. I have still quite a lot of space here, so I can add a lot of optional footprints here. So this is like a 5mm one.
Right.
Yeah. So 5mm screw terminal. This are these pluggable screw terminals. Okay, let me switch to notch cam. So you know these maybe these. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, these pluggable terminals, I like those actually most versus the normal ones because you can actually unplug it without like unscrewing it. And yeah, that's this 4-port one. And here, and another USB-C one. If you just want to like have a USB-C power supply from your Raspberry Pi or so, you can power it through here, which would give it 500 milliamps per port. But and also that's something I wanted to have because it also basically never exists with USB hubs. Is it dynamically switches between like USB port powered, so just plugging it in to your like upstream port and it's powered, or powering with an external power supply, and it's not mutually exclusive. So you can have it plugged in here, and you can just anytime plug in external power supply, and will then power through here instead of your USB port. Without it being fixed to either configuration.
Nice.
Yeah, I will also add a stemma QT connector on here, or quick, for programming this hub chip. It actually has quite a lot of options, like changing like the signal strength, basically. So if you have very long USB wires, you can overpower basically the signal, that it's over spec. But given your long wire, then when it arrives at the device, would be back to spec. And lots of these little nice settings that you can do with this hub.
Cool.
Yeah, that's it for me, I think.
Nice. Anyone, any questions? In the chat, maybe. What's the USB?
Shut up and take my money. Yes, of course. Okay. I will, Bitlinger. Thank you.
Great. So no Tindy links for us to share.
At some point.
I think
Yeah,
Vinny was asking about the tablet. If you had any updates.
This is it's a bit of a distraction to the tablet. I'm kind of procrastinating on that, but it kind of ties into this because I wanted to have an integrated hub for the tablet too. And here can gain a bit of experience with like a USB hub. So you can have a tablet with 6 USB ports on, because reasons.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking for a second that you could do the USB-C port on the bottom, and then on top you do the USB-A port. But yeah, then people might want to plug in 2 cables at once, and that can.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I had some ideas how to mitigate that, but I also want this to be not super expensive again. Like, I don't want to make the €150 hub, so I had to like choose my bad thing. Oh, one more cool little thing about it.
You could make a case with a little, like a door. You can only decide for one port that shows, but you can slide it up and down.
You can bet people will omit that.
Oh yeah, I hope you're not sharing our stream thingy right there. So
sorry.
Are we ready
one little
to
thing that I haven't seen on normal USB port hubs yet, but it's a normal feature of the hub chip. But it's, with Ethernet ports, you get the speed indicator LEDs. This is basically the same thing for USB. So it shows you if it's a low speed device, full speed, or high speed, and changes color accordingly.
The chip.
I'm not actually sure why you want that, but it's cool. I don't know. I like it. It's at least for debugging. Like if you work with USB, it's kind of nice to know if your hard drive is like going at low speed for some reason.
Bitlooney's got a brilliant feature to add is to have one of the ports upside down. Just
I like that. That's just evil.
just one in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can't do that with the USB-C
different
though.
on every revision. So you mess with people.
Yeah,
and they buy
it's just
two.
always going.
Sometimes it's that one. Sometimes it's that one.
Just tell the fab to just not pay attention too much.
Oh, you don't have to tell them; they will do on their own.
Go on.
You just have to communicate very well, I guess. But
That's true.
This
Cool.
goes on upside.
nice. So we got that covered as well. So
Who's next?
it's now up to Mr. Twinkle Twinkie, or Twinkie in short.
Now I have to actually talk. Oh man! Now you'll never get me to shut up. So I guess quick intro for people who don't know. I'm Twinkle Twinkie. Just call me Twinkie. That's what everyone else does. I mostly do stuff from like badge life, so like these like conference badges and things like that. And about a little over 2 years ago, the shitty add-on standard was created for indie badges, and I think I was the first person to make one outside of the regular badge maker groups. So, and that was this guy right here,
cool one.
this nightmare fuel, which was just a totally inspired idea. Let's see if we can get it. Oh, actually helps if you plug it into the right place. So let me turn my light off for a second, baby.
Ooh, yes.
Oh, that looks good.
And actually, the tarnish is actually that's something I didn't even know had happened on this particular one. So this is the copper is not bare copper. It's what's called OSP copper. It stands for organic something something something. I have no idea. I don't remember. It's a alternative to ENIG, where for whatever reason you wouldn't use ENIG, and to regular fingerprints, it's relatively tolerant of touching it. But isopropyl alcohol, acetone, or anything like that just strips off the coating from the copper. So that's what causes it to tarnish. So eventually, if you handle it too much, it won't. In later boards, I got around that by literally clear coating the whole board to maintain that so that you could handle it and things like that. But that whole post-processing is kind of a pain in the ass, so I don't really do it that often anymore. But this is the main thing I'm known for. So it's mostly those for the last 2 years, 3 years, 2 years. Jesus, how long have I been doing this? This would have been the third year, so 3 years. Wow, 3 years already. And so like, let me just transition this real quick. And this is what I've been mostly working on this year. So this is just a holder for these add-ons that we make, because the very first year of that the add-ons existed, by happenstance, the team who made the DEF CON 26 badge saw Krusty the It, and they snuck in an add-on port. So they were really, really popular the first year. The second year was a different person making the badge, and he didn't do the add-on stuff. So it was up to the indie badges to support them, which they were anyway. But there's not that many indie badges compared to people at DEF CON. So this little holder is kind of like the solution to that. They're $20. They're super cheap. And they do nothing but power add-ons. This one is actually Alex's. It looks perfect in person, but unfortunately the PWM is being betrayed by my camera. These are Osp Park. This was the Osp Park from last year. I think I actually made this after DEF CON. It's a Pharaoh Oshcat, and this is this year's. This is the prototype because it's doesn't look right. It should say Osp right here, and I made it a little too tight on the tolerances. But it's a lucky masked Oshcat. And then there's the SAO representing all of 2020, which is my panic button, which just has like a little mechanical keyboard switch on it, and a custom resin printed Nightmare Fuel panic button. These I will never make these again. It took me 2 months to make 100 because of how many failures I had or quality control problems I had. And I'm really picky about my own stuff. So if it looks wrong or isn't right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Was it printing or what took so long?
So some of them were printing problems because I was trying to make initially 8 per print and then 6 per print. And the FEP sheet will... like it can only take so much stress. So like the larger your part, the more you're stressing the FEP sheet, which means then that's the, other than the resin itself, that's the one part that is a consumable. So you wear them out pretty quickly, but you don't really know you've worn it out until you get a ruined print basically. Because it might go bad mid print. And then I actually had problems, which I didn't really realize until later, were because of because of COVID, isopropyl alcohol is really hard to get a hold of. So when I got my resin printers, which was right before COVID started, buying a gallon of isopropyl alcohol was like $200, and I was like, it's got to be a better way to do this. And so what I found was in America we have this chemical cleaner called Mean Green, and that worked really great. I didn't have any issues with that, but I ran out of it, and the store that I was buying it from wasn't going to stock it for a little while. So I settled with something alternative called Simple Green. And what I found out was that Simple Green, it is caustic enough to strip off the anodization of aluminum, and actually will eventually tear down aluminum. What was happening was, and I didn't notice till like well after the fact, was that over time as that Mean Green sat in the container with the propeller that when my wash and cure station uses, it was gradually disintegrating the propeller, and the little bits of aluminum were hitting the uncured print and ruining them, which I didn't realize that. Until like I got them cured, and then they had like all this like weird gunk on them, and they didn't look quite right. And so like I literally at one point threw away 30 keycaps, which had taken me a couple days to make. So that was really, really disheartening. I've done work. It wasn't that bad. It actually, if knowing what I know now, I don't know if I would really do it again. Because the only reason I made custom keycaps in the first place, because I was like, oh, what would it cost me to get red keycaps in general? And I couldn't get them for what I considered a reasonable price. But somehow I convinced myself to spend $300 buying all the more resin stuff to make keycaps. Because then like I'd already shown it off and I already had like 20 made before I was like, okay, I need a better resin printer and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't recommend doing that. Resin's extremely messy. So trying to do it as like a manufacturing process, even more so. And it's actually kind of brittle, so I don't really know how long these will hold up long term. It's really solid, but I was really worried when I started shipping these out that they were going to show up shattered to people's houses, because like they're brittle, but they're brittle in the sense that like ceramic is brittle, where it's a really hard thing, but when it breaks, it just shatters. Resin's the same way. Steve probably knows more about that than I do. Actually, that's
I'm an FDM.
I'm sorry, I meant Stephen Hawes. Sorry.
He prints everything.
That's his little add-on he made a couple years ago, or last year, I think it was. But add-ons and badges. That's kind of like my main. Why did I do that? I'm looking at this wrong screen. That's the add-on Steve made last year, I think. I got this from him at SuperCon, so it wasn't assembled. I really like it. It's really cool. But this is the kind of stuff that I do, and it's my primary focus. I spent most of September assembling these, both of these actually, and this is actually pretty neat to me in general. It's literally the cheapest thing I could make that made sense as a way to display the add-ons, because like the neat thing about badges in general is like when you have this, you can kind of just like put it on a lanyard and like hang it on a wall or something like that. There's a bunch of people who are really into badge stuff and they have badge walls, and I think that's really neat. But the add-ons, unless you have a badge to attach them to, there's not a ton you can really do with them. And there are a lot of like pretty creative solutions out there. Lookout, for instance, made these little boards that you can daisy chain together. I have some somewhere around here, but I don't know exactly where. But this was kind of like my solution to people who went to conferences where you could actually buy the add-ons and like they didn't want to spend $100 to buy a badge. This is $20, which just as much as an add-on is. It's got these M4 screws in it right now so that it kind of like sits at an angle. But this is actually where you could put lanyard holds, and they're M4 size holes, so it's pretty standard size. So you can mount them however you want. And it's a battery power or USB-C. So this one is being powered by battery right now. This one is being powered by USB-C. And it's I was extremely paranoid about how I set this up, because I was really worried, because like with USB-C, like it's a freaking standards nightmare. So you can't just, it's not like micro USB where you can just throw on some resistors and run it and just do your thing. Because if someone happens to plug like a power delivery power brick to it, it is not very well made. It might dump like 12 volts or more into this. So I made really, really sure that I put the right resistor values on there and everything like that to tell it, hey, just give me 5 volts. Don't give me anything more than that. So, and it does work both ways, which I shouldn't be proud of, but I am. You can take it and you can
be proud of that.
I was like, yes, it works. This is actually I kind of, the reason why it's actually worked really easy. This is a 8-pin or 16 pin. I think it's a 16 pin, a USB-C connector. So actually, even if this was like an actual product with data and things like that, it would only be a USB 2.0 port altogether. I think maybe it could do 3.0. And I just bought 500 of them because I always buy everything in ridiculous quantities because I'll use it up eventually anyway. But it's just that, a power switch. There is a linear, everyone's favorite A1117 linear voltage regulator on here that takes that from 5 volts down to 3.3 volts. The battery is far more simple. It's literally just running straight to the power. And it's just a toggle switch, which when you don't have anything on one or the other, doubles as a power switch. So I don't have batteries in it, so it turns it off.
Oh, so you're using the switch to either put 3 volts from the batteries or the 3.3 volts from the regulator, like
exactly right.
I was wondering how you protect the batteries from the 5-volt USB or
they're not connected to the same lines. I mean, hypothetically, if someone wanted to be a jerk about it, they could probably hold the switch in just the right place to maybe bridge it. Maybe. I have been using this particular slide switch for a long time, and I haven't really had any problems with them before. And the only thing that would happen, hypothetically, is that you might overvolt the SAOs, and you may or may not burn the LEDs out on them. So, but that's really, really unlikely. I made it a point to, when I ship these out, and I think it's even on the Tindy listing page for it, to say, don't plug this into your computer. Please don't plug this into your computer. Don't plug this into your computer. It will work. It's not that it won't work, but if it fries your computer, I will not be responsible for that. I have plugged it into my own computer. So I more than one. In a like, okay, I don't want to find out the hard way that someone plugged this into their laptop and fried their laptop. So it should not do that, but USB shouldn't do a lot of things that it does. So I just tell people, don't plug it into anything you don't like. It's plugged into a power bank right now, so which will power this thing for, depending on the SAO you put into it. And actually, the major concern is not this device by itself plugged into USB-C. The problem is that so originally they're called shitty add-ons. I've decided to rebrand them to simple add-ons. I'll get into that in a minute. But these are not made to like any particular standard whatsoever. These are relatively simple, and they don't do much of anything. They don't do that much draw that much power. But I have a friend. He designed one with like a little spinning motor on it. When you first power that thing, it pulls half an amp by itself for like a millisecond.
That's just a spec.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. I was like, you need to do something about that. You might fry someone if you do that. Because officially, when you think about like power protection and things like that, officially the person who designs the device it plugs into is supposed to have like your proper power circuit, so that it can't like reverse feed or anything like that. And almost no one does it. No one does what they're supposed to do with it. In fact, one year, one of the badges was like, hey, do you think most of these add-ons can handle about 4 volts? And I was like, I mean, probably. Why? Yeah, our SAO ports are outputting 3.9 volts instead of 3.3 volts. And I was like, well, they'll be very bright LEDs and hopefully nothing worse. And actually, there's a badge called Internet of Batteries, which the first year it existed was an add-on that you plugged into the badge to power the badge. And I was like, when they first showed it to me, I was like, oh, please don't make that. And of course I did it anyway, because it worked on most of the badges, including my own. Because this particular badge, it's the same thing. I got a little cheap on the power circuitry when I really shouldn't have. So it's running, the batteries are running to a voltage regulator, but on the lights, but for the ports, these are running straight from the battery. So technically, if you plugged a battery into them, that would power the badge. And sure enough, it did. I was really glad that it didn't fry my badge. But it's a fast and loose standard. The add-ons are meant to take 3.3 volts. And it's really meant to be a gateway to get people into circuit board design. And I took it a step further to make it a gateway into not just circuit board design, but circuit boards as art. As you can see, all my boards are some kind of design. They're not. It's actually really funny how the fabs react to them sometimes. The first year, I had made this. It was a kitty cat. It was a Cheshire cat that had the glowing eyes and the mouth and everything. And I had PCBWay making them, and I got a message from PCBWay. They're going, we really like your kitty cat. Is it for children? And I was like, yes, absolutely. 100% for small children. Definitely not for adults. So let me show.
Just like the clowns are for kids.
Right, exactly. Yeah, definitely the terror clown is everyone's favorite one. So the funny thing is this is the third design I ever made for a PCB for badge life stuff. And I got a comment from a guy saying, I love that, but I can't buy it because it would scare my daughter to death. And in the spirit of that, the next one I made was like just a cartoon character, with all the copyright violations that comes with it. Where is that thing? Here we are. So
yeah, I'm surprised.
The next one I made.
Nice.
And this one, is this an early one or not? Oh yeah, this is like a really first one. So like the back has complicated artwork and things like that on them. And what was actually pretty funny when I started making this stuff was that I thought making PCB art was this dark secret that no one knew, like no one was sharing, because if they shared it, then it would be outside of this like close knit group, and they didn't want to do that. Then when I started making this stuff, I started getting questions from the people who I'd been admiring for years, going, "How did you do that?" I'm like, well, I mean, it's just copper and solder mask and things like that. They're like, yeah, but how did you get these colors? Like, oh, you don't know. I thought you were being facetious. You don't know. So then that's actually kind of what started the whole thing about me sharing everything that I know. I've had a lot of hobbies in the past, a lot of expensive hobbies. And sometimes like you start a new hobby, and when you start to get into the weeds, you kind of find out that there's like there's a lot of gatekeeping in hobbies sometimes, where it's like, hey, I know this one little bit of information, and that one little bit of information makes my life so much easier. And I get that information and go, oh, neat. Hey guys, guess what? If you do this, your life will be easier. And then sometimes people get upset about that because like, oh, well, now everyone can do it. I'm like, well, yeah, if more people can do it, then I get better by seeing their better work than mine. And then I've got to try to make better stuff or try to, what's Gordon elevate? I got to elevate my art. That's how I look at that stuff, and that's so lately my focus and most of what I'm going to be working on here in October is redoing a bunch of tutorials, modernizing some of the tutorials. The stuff I have right now on my YouTube is a couple years old, and the basics are still there. The basics are still right, but there is a lot of things that I do differently. There's more shortcuts that I've since learned, and it's still just a really great way to get people introduced to, electronics. And, the neat thing is if you don't know much about electronics but you're like really like the badges and you really like stuff like that, you eventually realize that you're making embedded electronics. You're making something that's low power, that has probably battery powered, that's a small device that needs to last for a few days. And the next thing you know, you talk to the right person and you're like, oh, I've been doing electronic engineering for a couple years. And I didn't even know that was what it was called. And then, once you learn those, find out what it's actually called, you can talk to people who see this stuff and they've been working with it for years. They've been making custom PCBs for decades, and they go, I've never thought about that. Like they've seen like over the years, there's definitely been people who I could think it was the Xbox One X Scorpio. There was like a little Master Chief copper art on the motherboard for it somewhere. And the first case of PCB art I've actually ever seen, if you had the Pokemon Crystal game, I don't know about in Europe, but in the United States, it's a transparent plastic cartridge, and on the back, so you can see the back of the actual PCB, and there's actually a silkscreen logo of the Crystal logo. Actually, I think I have that. Give me 1 second. Look at this, and I'll grab it real quick.
That's on all of the badges. I really want to see all the badges you made.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Do you know how many badges you made now? Or simple add-ons? Oh, headphones.
Is there like a universal like display that if you want to start getting all these badges, is there like some kind of universal, just add to
Brian made one.
Yeah.
Not Brian Day, but Hackaday Brian.
Yeah.
He has like a huge wall with like 2 kilowatt power supply.
Oh yeah. We could have made a drinking game out of watching that power supply with how much amperage it was pulling. Like it was at one point I was like, I think it's dangerously high. And we were like plugging stuff into it and unplugging it all the time. So I'm actually wrong. So this is the US and Japanese version. And I'm going to show how much of a dork I am because I thought that it was the original US cartridge that had the art, and it doesn't. But the Japanese one did. And I imported this a couple years ago, and that's the first time I saw it. And I was like, oh, that is really cool. And this would be from 2001, 2000, I think. For Japan, maybe 2000. And when you think about what EDA software was 20 years ago, like even commercial EDA software, I imagine putting this on that board was probably a nightmare for the poor engineer who did that. And actually, now that I notice it, the board looks white, but it's actually a green board with white silkscreen. So they just put like silkscreen everywhere. Wow. That's pretty neat. But I would see stuff like that. I would see the stuff that Loft made and for DEF CON over the years. And I was just like, whoa, I really want to make PCB art because I spent most of my teenage years making websites and doing graphic design. And so I've always had kind of like an artistic sort of thing going on. And the great thing about working with PCBs is as an art form, and I'm just going to stick with Krusty here, is that you can make these shapes and you can do all this stuff and take advantage of the really, really limited number of colors and things like that. And you're treating the manufacturing process as a art form, using the limitations of the form to make something really unexpected and unusual. And I just kind of kept running with it, and I've experimented with it more and more over the years. This was the first 4-layer. Let's see.
Say the word.
Kind of getting blown out a little bit.
Say the word.
No. I always refuse to say the word on a recording.
It's GIF.
But
it's a graphic. It's a GIF.
Let's see. My light's kind of blowing it out a little bit. Let me
Chat, please discuss.
Come on. There you go. So you can see the little giraffes on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And Hirun is one of the he's another badge maker. He works he's one of the team members of the Annight XOR badge team, which they do. If you're familiar with Badge Life at all, it's like usually they do like the Bender badges and things like that. And there was a Badge Life documentary that Hackaday had made in 2018, and I was in that. And other than Mike saying Galaga the weirdest way I've ever heard it in my life, Hirun insisted on saying GIF. Like he put
now it's recording
emphasis on it, and I'm like, oh, come on. So I made this, but this actually was a proof of concept of using 4 layers instead of 2 layers of copper to do art. I do have an example. So let me I'm sure this is making all sorts of lovely noises. So this is the 4-layer, and this is the original 2-layer one I made. And let me show you what they look like and why I end up going to the 4 layers. So that's not on.
Twinkie. People have been asking about your lighting setup, if it's a UV light or a black light, or is it just a purple
It is
light?
a regular white light, RGB light that I happen to have on purple right now. That's all.
You should get you should get orange and teal.
I'll set that up after this. Absolutely. So let me turn the light off. Actually, it'll be easier to see with that. So you can see that this is the 2-layer board, and the light's overbleeding a lot. And this is the 4-layer board. So in the interstitial and the middle layers, I'm actually blocking the word out so that it only lights up the way I want it to. If I had really thought about it, I would have. There is a red solder mask under the word. I would have removed that so that it's just lighting up more white instead of the red look. But it actually, I think it looks really nice. And like at SuperCon at night or like DEF CON at night, like these little things really stand out, and everyone gets a laugh out of it. And the best part is I made this intentionally vague so that depending on how you pronounce it, you think it's for you.
Right.
Which is why I have I'll turn that right back to me. So on the front, you can actually, you can see it says graphics interchange format, but on the back, it's got everyone's favorite way of saying it, which is the giraffe. Just a bunch of repeating giraffes over and over again. So that's the stuff. That's the stuff I'm really, really into, and I do want to get deeper into like the electronic side of it. And I've been leaning on a good friend, Wire Engineer. He does all the software for the Toymaker badges. He uses mostly PIC processors, and he codes everything in assembly because he's been coding PIC processors in assembly for 20 years. And it's kind of hard to want to learn how to program an MCU when you have a friend who's got as much experience as you've almost been alive. And he's willing to do it in exchange for the electronic equivalent of beer. And it is always funny because I always come to him with an idea that I want to do. And I'm always thinking it's like the most complicated thing ever, and that it's going to take forever to figure out. And he's like, "Oh yeah, give me about a week, and I'll put together on a lazy, Wednesday night." I was like, "Okay," and he's great. He does all my software at this point, and there is some exceptions. Nick Pissarro, I worked with on the holiday board I did last year, and the Wireshark. Dave, did you get a Wireshark from me at SuperCon?
I'm not sure. It's probably in the box of badges.
So this was just something we made. I don't think I have a battery in it. For SuperCon, and this was actually another 4-layer board, so that we could get the right colors and things like that. There was another reason it needed to be 4 layers, and I don't remember that anymore. But actually, I'm going to dig up a battery because everyone needs to be tortured by this. I have a daughter, and last year, the Baby Shark song was basically on loop all year long. So we made Nick had come up with these like these badges that were like a Pac-Man and a one was Pac-Man, one was Darth Vader, and they played their respective theme songs and things like that. And what they are is they're just a simple AT Tiny with a piezo buzzer, and it uses the protocol that that Nokia phones used for ringtones. So I had to go hunt down and try to find a MIDI version of the Baby Shark song, which does exist, but they were all too complicated. So I spent a week making this terrible, terrible thing. And so that's Wireshark, and it's got a little. This is mine, so it's got the bodge on it, but it has got the little thing. I don't remember, was that? Yeah, that was a sponsor. Actually, that one has a bodge because of a. I think I accidentally lifted the pad when I soldered it. I actually got stuck in a hotel like a week before SuperCon, and so like I was like hand assembling a couple of them before I went, and then like I gave up halfway through and said, because I was putting too much heat into the MOSFETs and it was messing up the sound. We did a holiday version of it, which is actually still in my Tindy store. I had released it a little too late, so unfortunately it didn't sell that well last year. But it's basically the same thing, except it rotates through different Christmas songs. And it's a robot. It's really neat. If you do follow me on Twitter, you would have seen that yesterday I woke up with a stick up my butt and decided that I wasn't going to call these shitty add-ons anymore. I was going to call them simple add-ons. And it's not a censorship thing or anything like that. I actually don't really care that they're called that, but there's a lot of people who do. And I was having too many conversations over the last couple of years with people who wanted to start making badges, but they didn't want to make an SAO because they had a different idea of what it was supposed to be. Because the original idea was always that it was supposed to be a safe introduction to badges. It took care of the power and everything like that. All you had to do was, put at the time the first ones were 2x2 connectors. We changed it to 2x3 for mechanical stability reasons. And like this is a really simple one. It just has a single LED and a resistor on it, and that's it. This is like the most basic kind of SAO. But people thought they were supposed to be bad, or that they were called something else, and people were ironically calling them shitty add-ons. And I just had too many conversations with people who said that they love these little boards and things like that, but they hate the name. And I had attempted to change the name about a year ago, but I didn't want to do it as like something I was just going to do. I was trying to convince the community at large, hey, let's just change the name. And some people were up for it, some people weren't, and I was busy with other things, so I didn't really have the energy to fight it with it. But I had a conversation the last couple of days, basically a recurrence of that exact same conversation I just mentioned, and I just said, okay, that's it. I'm changing the name, and no one cared. So everyone was actually pretty happy about it. That was the one thing that really surprised me. I knew there was definitely groups who were avoiding it because of the name, but I didn't expect any of those people or those groups to actually come out and say, oh, thank you. Or, I'm glad you changed the name because now we can actually talk about it. I wasn't expecting them to be that forward about it. But that was That's pretty cool. Nice. And the spec is really, really simple. Let me pull the page up real quick. And it's just, like I said, a 2x3 connector. And the male part the part that you actually put on your board as the person making the add-on is really, really inexpensive and super common. It's the badge maker that kind of get the hard part where they have to track down the female part. Which I happen to have the bulk of the supply of in the United States right now, because I bought 20,000 from China.
It's not ball part.
It's always harder to find the female part.
Yeah, it's well, the reason why is that this was it's an IDC connector, so it's actually meant for like a ribbon cable, and so that's why the male part is really easy to find, and the female part, if you're making ribbon cables, is extremely easy to find. It's only when you want to be a doofus about it and put it on a board that it's hard. And if you I hope this shows up in the feed, but like you see that this was a more square part. And then this one's a little more rounded. This is actually a part that I had made here in the United States. There's a Sullins connector company actually makes this. And that's what you can, if you go on DigiKey or Mauser, this is what you're going to find. But no one stocks it. So you have to have them make it. And you have to order a minimum of 1,000. And at 1,000, they're like 75 cents each, 50 cents each, maybe. And we ordered about 12,000 last year, and that I got that down to 35 cents each. And because when we decided to change it to this 2x3, there was a couple of sellers on AliExpress who were selling them really cheap. And I was like, oh, okay, so we can get these pretty easily, no big deal. And then when we all went to go order them, those sellers disappeared. Like you couldn't find the connector again. And then eventually they did pop back up again, and I got a hold of them. And for right before COVID hit, I ordered 20,000. But I paid a lot less for them, so it wasn't that bad. And I paid for that mostly out of pocket. And I did do a bulk order, a big group buy for it, so I didn't eat the whole thing out of pocket. But this is the part. But you only have to worry about this if you're making badges. This is the mail part's all you have to worry about if you're actually making it, and it's a super simple footprint. When I decided to change the name, I decided to make some slight changes to the footprint just to make it not really easier, but just match the parts more accurately. There was slight differences about like I had when I made the footprint for 2019, I had like, hey, where does the square pin go, guys? And they're like, well, ground. And I was like, cool, ground. And then everyone was like, why did you make it ground? It was supposed to be pin 1. I was like, well, I've already made all the boards now. And I changed that to reflect pin 1. So really, if you just want to get started, all you need is power and ground. That's VCC and ground. These other ones, that's if you want the board to talk to the badges you're plugging into. So the badges themselves have to support that. And that's something you want to coordinate with the individual badge makers. And the first year just had SDA and SEL, and then we added GPIO for the second year when we decided to have 2 more pens. And you might ask, how come we didn't go with 2x4? Because that's super common, and the female part for that's also common and inexpensive. And it's because the size difference between a 2x3 and a 2x4 to the badge makers was too large. It was too much board space to give up. Because that doesn't seem like a lot, just 2 more pens. But if you look at, I got my windows all messed up now. If you look at, let me turn the light on so you can actually see something. If you look at Arc Badge, that 2x3 is actually taking up a fair amount of space. And you need a certain amount of clearance so that it doesn't bump up against parts if you have LCD displays or anything like that. The orientation in which you put the connector on your badge is pretty important. There was like one badge last year that they kind of just slapped it on there and didn't really think about it. And it ended up that when you actually put anything on the badge, it covered up the LCD screen. So you couldn't use it. It was just like a nifty port for fun at that point. It didn't do anything useful. So like things like that kind of actually do matter. And like the extra 2 pins kind of just, it takes up a lot of space when you're trying to keep these, large enough to where you can do everything you want to do on them, but not too large that they get more expensive to make. Because some of the badges are actually pretty complicated, like six layers or more. So the board themselves can be kind of expensive. But that's what I do. That's my whole thing. And this is my disaster of a mess now after having that neat little display going. But yeah, that's me. That's what I'm all about. I mostly Twitch stream lately, but I do have a YouTube channel that I'm trying to put get more tutorials back up, new stuff, and that way I can. I do get questions pretty frequently about how to do this and that, and I do want to share that information, and I will. Like if you message me, I'll freely tell you, and I look at people's designs or like all the time. But obviously that's not very accessible to people who want to message me at 3 a.m. And are working on something right now. So videos and references for sure. And that's going to be my focus here in October is actually getting some of those done to share with people and try to, again, reduce the barrier of entry. Because I do very firmly believe that the more people who are doing these things, not only do you get, different points of view, more cultural influences and things like that. People who come from different backgrounds look at things in a different way. I come from a background mostly with to do with graphics and things like that. And I really like working with a really tight constrained world, because then you have to get really creative to solve your problems. I spend an embarrassing amount of time reading about how they program video games for like 90s era consoles or older, because like they did really incredible things with next to nothing with them. And that's how I look at PCB art and things like that. You have 4 colors, maybe 5. You can get kind of creative, but the way you to get your patterns on there and show off your art it's limitless. And again, the more people you get into it, the more creative things you see, the more ideas you get, and everyone grows from that. There are definitely people I've run into that they think they're like, oh, I'm tired of seeing these boards that just light up and they don't do anything. And I'm like, yeah, but to that person who made that was a big deal. It was a lot of hard work. I did all my streaming this last month on me assembling the badges and everything, mostly to show people how much work goes into the assembly process for the stuff. Like everyone just gets the trinket and they're like, oh, well, this this probably only took you like a day. I'm like, no, like months. It took me a day to get the parts together to assemble it. And then there's like still like I'm I still have a family and I have responsibilities and things like that, and so you spend a lot of time working on this stuff, and if nothing else, it's nice to show people how much work goes into it. And some people really like to watch and see it, and then other people it's also kind of like a reality check for people who want to step into it, but they're like, well, maybe I'll do like 50. I'm like, maybe you should start with 10 and go from there. And if you really liked it, step up from there.
Yeah, I definitely echo those comments. Like the entry, the gateway. I was introduced to Dave Darko before I knew Dave Darko, and I was introduced to electronics from Dave Darko. Essentially, he had his Knight Rider badge. Look at him; he's like, "Wait a minute." So yeah, it was just going through the internet, getting interested in electronics, and then I saw Dave's Knight Rider badge, and I was like, "Well, that's cool." He had all the files, so I learned like Hackaday. I learned like GitHub. I went to Osp Park and I ordered like boards. I haven't built a single one, as you would imagine. But then I spoke to Dave again before we even knew each other, and I was like, "Hey, I think I followed your Hackaday post or something. It was a different revision, and I went to Osp Park, and you were like, oh, well, I've got a better version." And Dave just sent me his badge, and it was like, and it was, it's like a 5-minute solder thing, but you learn so much just to get to that point. And like you say, it just lights up. It does nothing, but it just does so much more. It's a huge entry thing to go into. Just here, make this badge. You just open up so many gateways.
Yeah, and I think Dave, I had this conversation with you and Alex at SuperCon where because like some people they really hold it close to their chest because they think that, oh well, if I do it, if I tell people my secrets, then I'll be out the job. I'll have too much competition. And I was like, no, trust me, that's not how that works at all. Because you end up being the person who teaches people. So you end up kind of being the person where you kind of end up kind of being put on a pedestal, whether you want to be or not. But the reality is if you're in a room of 50 people and you tell all 50 people the exact same information, realistically, probably maybe 20% of that are going to think, oh, maybe I'm going to do that when I get home. And then actually, realistically, of that 20%, 10% of those people actually do anything with it. And then 10% of that 10% will actually take that and like have something to show you. And so when like, it's like, oh, I taught a room of 50 people how to just do this thing. At the end of the day, 2 of them actually did something with it. And maybe one of those will actually maybe go on to make a product if you're making that kind of thing, which is great. Competition's awesome. And again, it's people to learn from, and different people come from different backgrounds. It's really interesting when I run into people who have been doing embedded development for decades, because it's really weird when someone who you basically are like, wow, you are an expert, like an actual expert, and you're kind of gushing on me, and I'm like, but I don't know how to do anything you do. Like, I'm the newbie here. But it's also great. That's why I love SuperCon so much. Is it's basically a bunch of people gushing on each other.
Definitely.
And it's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
I'm missing it so much this year. I can't tell you.
We need to make
Same.
a MakerCast show for the episode with just everyone wearing that shirt. Everyone, I think, nearly everyone here had worn that shirt before the show.
Oh, it's great. Oh, but it's like I said, I at the same time, I want to for more people to learn how to do it. I want people who do, like, the maker crowd, who already know how to do a bunch of stuff I don't know how to do, kind of do the same, like keep making tutorials so that I can follow them, so I can make neater and better stuff. And it's all a cycle. And and then on top of that, it's like our responsibility to, as the influencers, if you will, I wouldn't say that I'm one, but to like look for where there's what I would say gaps in knowledge or representation of, like, hey, let's pull more different people from different backgrounds, different cultures. I want to see what they would do. I want to see how they look at this. And if that means that I need to not just teach them how to do it, but maybe sponsor a little bit, sponsor a limited run for them or something like that helps them get them going, then, do it. Because that's important. It's important to get the different viewpoints. I mean, like the two guys literally next to me, we could be cousins and no one would know. I mean, we looked exactly the freaking same glasses.
I was just about to say that. There's a theme with MakerCast.
Yeah. I was like, okay, this is a problem.
Yeah. We tried, but it's hard.
Yeah. So, but it's, and I mean,
regular.
And that kind of stuff, you can't force it. It's a fine line between trying to be inclusive and patronizing, but
For sure.
But if you got to do something, like you get it, it's better to get in a little bit of trouble seeming like you're patronizing than to do nothing. And if you do kind of go about it the wrong way, or it doesn't seem that receptive, just keep at it. Eventually you'll find someone who really wants to do it, or just don't pester them. Just like, hey, you want to do something neat stuff? Do you want to make some really cool stuff? And just go from there.
Just a question for the SAO standard. Is there some like common standard for the communication for the GPIOs and the I2C where you can put or send over there? Stuff you should not do?
I don't know enough about that end of it. It depends on the chipset that they use. Like, I know that there was one add-on the very first year that came out that was using an MCP 23 something. It was a LED controller, and depending on the badge you plugged into it, it supported it, and it would talk to the badge, and like it would change its LED display and things like that. But they found out that there was another badge that used the same chip, and even though they probably shouldn't have run the SDA SCL lines, they did. And then the badge with that part plugged in bricked. You had to unplug it and restart the badge for it to start working again, because it would interrupt the line, because I think that's a serial line. It would interrupt it and cause problems with the badge. So that's where I talk about like technically this stuff exists so that you could do stuff with it, but it's very much a per badge thing. And honestly, a lot of badges don't support it. That's not really my area of expertise, so my badges don't. But technically, it's there. So if you want to, and like the most common use cases is actually a badge maker or a group, a badge group making a badge, and then they also make add-ons that communicate with the badge that unlock features and things like that. There's definitely been talks in the past about having coordinating something ahead of time, so that you make a badge, and then like say like a different village or different areas at a conference would be handing out these add-on boards, and as you plug them into the board, it would send it would send just the right signal to tell the to turn a 0 to a 1, and now like something about your badge is permanently unlocked because you got that, or something like that. There's a lot of interesting ways to use it, but it requires a lot of coordination. And if you've ever had to work with another independent team for free, that's the hard part.
Yeah, from my understanding, I think it was always the idea that you fiddle with the badge and you program it and hack with it, and you can then interact with these little add-ons as well. So it's always firmware dependent if it actually uses, the I2C or the GPIOs. I think 90% of the badges that I've saw, like add-ons that I've seen, they don't use the I2C, and at most some use like GPIO to like turn on and off, maybe at most. But most of the time it's just a power port.
Yeah,
it's mostly treated as a power port. Because when the original standard when they originally came up with it, very, very early 2018, it really was just to be a power port. And then they said, hey, I think it was the anti-XOR team said that we're going to do this with some of our add-ons anyway with the I2C. So let's go ahead and just put that in the standard so that, because we already got these 2 pins that aren't going to do anything with it. So let's do something with it. Because the add-on thing was born out of in 2016, the QueerCon badge, they leaked, an add-on standard that used was 4 straight pins, and 2 of them were power, and then 2 were I2C, and they just kind of wanted to like see what people would do with it. And most of them was the same thing. It was just kind of like they were taking power from the badge. And the next year, QueerCon didn't do anything, but the anti-XOR team, I don't think it was a public thing, but they did have like these little extra add-ons, like it was like brain slugs, and like because that was the year it was the Bender Rodriguez, or the Hunter S. Thompson Bender badge, and like you could get like a brain slug add-on and stuff. And it was then the 3rd year after seeing that, which was 2018, that they're like, hey, let's combine, add-ons seem to be really popular. Let's make a standard, a shitty standard. It was literally designed in MS Paint by Benchoff, like super last minute. That's why it was called that's why it's called what it was, because it was literally they came up with it with 5 minutes, had zero, like no one like figured, okay, well, let's actually plug in 2 by 2 and see how stable that is. No, and they just like, all right, we're gonna do this because reasons, and the rest is history. So technically it can do more, but not many people actually use it.
Okay, if you're making a badge or a SAO thing that would have the capability to use that, you should not backdrive it into the badge.
Right. Yeah,
and it should accept whatever the badge is sending.
Right. So generally what happens is, because of just because of how much time everything takes to make the badges and to make the add-ons and things like that, generally what happens is like DEF CON, if this was a normal year, would have just happened about a month ago, almost 2 months ago. So right about now is when everyone's hangovers are gone and they're talking about what they're going to do for the next year. So now would be around the time where the badge makers are talking about what they're going to do for 2021. And if you're someone who's new, who's like, I kind of want to do something, I saw all this great stuff, I want to be a part of that, I want to make something. And if you're someone who already has the electronic skill to do something with I2C or GPIO, then you could then contact the various badge makers, because there's a couple of groups that make badges every single year. And some of them, if you get them early enough, will coordinate with you and work with you, especially if it's something that it doesn't really add any more time to their development time. Because that's usually the only time where you kind of run into problems, is when you're like, because DEF CON's is in August, and it's kind of like, oh, it's June, and I want to do something. I want to like do something that talks to the badges. And some badges, if they support it, will already have documentation and like a standard. Like this is a communication standard. If you want to do something or talk to it, here's what you can do. And some do actually do that. But other than that, if it's not something like that, you guys got to get them as early as possible. And they, like I said, they tend to be, especially if you're sincere and serious about it, a lot of them are actually pretty receptive to it. Because the different, like most, there's not really any badge teams that are like rough and difficult to get a hold of or anything like that. It's mostly just if you're willing to reach out to them and actually talk to them. Most of them will talk to you, and most badges are open sourced after the conferences and things like that. So there's plenty of examples to go off of. I try to do the same thing. I try to release my designs. I used to release my KiCad files. I stopped doing that. I saw. I don't mind when someone makes a Gerber of my stuff or takes a Gerber and makes something, but I saw someone like make a badge with my name removed from it, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that
It
anymore.
works.
Oh,
I might pick it up.
So,
that's hilarious.
oh, number wing, that's awesome. And
Yeah,
your
it works
camera's
on my
actually
camera.
showing the
Yeah.
letters. But it's really cool. And like I said, that's why I changed the name, was because it had become a barrier for some people, and it was a really unnecessary, arbitrary barrier. And I mean, for some people, because like some people's reactions to that was like, well, it's just a word. I'm like, yeah, but words matter. It might not bug me, but it bugs enough people, and that's reason enough to change it. You know, it's harmless. Just change it. So we did.
It has a connotation, and it makes it more accessible. There's no good reason to. I think it was just there because, you know, it's a quick and dirty way to do it. I think that's where the whole shitty thing comes from.
Right,
But
exactly.
the things itself are great, and I think just it's simple. That's the same way of describing the same like simple.
Exactly.
I like it.
Exactly.
I like it.
So
Great.
one more thing about the I2C versus just using power for the simple add-ons. This is a donut with
the donut. I love it.
a sprinkle of LEDs on there. The problem is, if I would hand this out and people would plug this in, nothing would happen because there's an I2C LED controller on it. So you would have to have the program on your badge somehow. So I think that's not so cool in the end because, yeah.
But that's
you
the
want
challenge to hand out.
Yeah.
And
that's
that, and you have to make it light up.
Yeah, and that's like that's really the real problem. And we saw some of that the first year. There was a couple of, because the Anna-XOR badge was really public about if you use the specific controller, this is how you talk to our stuff, and if you put a bunch of NeoPixels on your board, it'll talk to them and synchronize and do some pretty neat stuff. But just like Dave was saying, if you made yours for that purpose, then obviously it won't work on anything else. And that's not really a problem depending on how you want to use it. Like if you're intentionally giving it to other people with that specific badge, or if it's only meant to come with your badge. So like when I did this, I intentionally I did this little add-on to come with it, which, by the way, so this is my Iron Gauntlet. I designed this in January. So, and then the movie came out and I was like, yes, I got it right. Also, now I can't show it off because when we normally show this stuff off is when the Avengers Endgame movie came out. So it became a spoiler unintentionally. But it's like, if you're doing it, but if it's a situation where you make your badge and it's going to come with this, everyone's going to get them both. Then you can do, just tell people, yeah, this won't work on other badges. It'll only work on this badge. It's a package deal.
That's fine.
But if you make them like individual ones, kind of like, little Bender here, UFO Bender. He's awesome. He's one who's actually not painted, so he's actually so reflective. I want this to work on everyone's devices. I want this to work on any way that you decide to power it. I just want it to work. It's, you can do obviously wherever you want, as most complicated you want. One of the neatest add-ons I saw, it was not malicious, but it was really funny to me, was because, again, like I mentioned before, sometimes the badge makers don't protect their own circuit, the rest of the badge from whatever gets plugged in here. And the first year, that someone made a banana SAO, and when you plugged it in, shorted your whole badge. But it wasn't malicious, because the person who gave them out told you how it worked before you walked away, and he didn't sell them or anything like that. He did give them away, and I have one of them somewhere around here. But what he would do is he would say, if you plug this into your badge, it'll short your badge. Like, well, okay, why would you do that? Okay, well, here you go. Look at the circuit. and then you turn it over and you look at the circuit, and then where it has the stem is where the short is. So if you break the stem, like you're peeling a banana, it breaks the short. So then you can plug it in. And he had it in such a way that it had like a little loop in it, and like a little like keychain thing, so you could see like it would be broken and it would be hanging off, kind of like if you peeled a banana. And then it wouldn't short anymore.
Really cool.
I was like, okay, that's incredible. I need one of those now.
Nice.
And I have one fling around here somewhere, not broken, because that's the whole fun part, is to show people that part.
I think Mark Olson has a good point there. That would have been a shitty add-on.
Yeah.
If it shorts your board.
But you know, and it's cool, and it's a lot of fun, and I always love, because like a real easy pivot away from making add-ons is then like making a really simple it's like Lemons for All on Twitter. She made some Ruth Bader Ginsburg SAOs, and then later she turned that into a pen. Just like a power with like a 2032, and that's a great like way to take what you learned from making this to then just like, okay, now just add a battery and now you have a pen, and you've learned something, you've made something really neat, you know, if you do it from the art side, then you know you got a new creative thing, because a lot of people look at this is kind of something you don't really appreciate unless you know how PCBs are made. That's where you really appreciate this kind of stuff. But it has the appeal to people who don't know any better, because it's a cool little trinket object, and like they're made to be inexpensive, so they're pretty accessible from that respect. And it's like I said, the whole point is for it to be a gateway into making PCBs, into making electronics, into learning about it. I didn't know how to light an LED up before I started. I still barely know how to, depending on how you look at it. And like you find new solutions for weird problems. So like this guy is like, you can kind of see where I've got hot glue on there, and the hot glue is acting as a light diffuser, so that when you power it, it lights up more of the area. Let me turn my light off so it's a little more obvious. And you can actually see on the camera where like it's not quite reaching the top. But the reason why it can even reach that far is because of the hot glue, and it actually looks pretty good on the camera where it's all lit up. And that came out of me buying 24,000 side view LEDs, and then soldering a board and going, oh crap, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look the way I expected it to look. And I literally went to bed and slept on it. And then I was like, what if I put hot glue on it? What will that look like? And it works. And the reason why it looks so smooth and clean is then someone asked me, could you put that in a reflow oven? Could you and their idea was like to take little like pucks of glue and to put it near the LEDs and then put it through an oven at a low temp and reflow it like that. And I tried that. It sort of kind of worked. It was really messy. But if you've ever hot glued something, hot glue can be just a total freaking mess. And like you can have like little peaks and things like that. And so after that experiment, I was like, well, I wonder if I could get this to lay more evenly and to remove any bubbles if I reflow it. And sure enough, it did. I put it through a low temp cycle, and it was just enough to melt it and let it lay flat. And if you let it, once it cools down completely, it just feels like a regular stick of glue. It's not tacky or anything like that. And it makes the light flow better through it. There is a limitation in how far light will go through, will still shine through the medium. I've done experiments trying to like mix medium or use like a different kind of hot glue to see if I can make the light go further, like let it refract better. And honestly, yes and no. I could get it to work better, but it was like literally like an extra millimeter. It wasn't really worth it. It was easier just to put two LEDs, like the yellow has two LEDs instead of one like these other ones. And that's also really dependent. You might buy really powerful yellow LEDs and you can get away with one. These are not. These are super cheap. They cost 3 cents each, which is the reason why I switched to them, because I was using reverse mount LEDs, which is like what I used here on Krusty the see if that shows. But the thing about these are 30 cents each. So, and even if you buy them in quantity and you go directly to the manufacturer and say, I want to buy 100,000, they're like, okay, that'll be 10 cents each. And I'm like, okay, never mind. You know, when an LED normally is, you know, especially if you're buying them from China, if you're buying a generic size, they're literally a couple of pennies. So that's why I bought 24,000 side view, was because all said and done, I paid $600 for 24,000, including shipping, DHL shipping. So,
Nice.
so it was like, again, I had like, oh no. Now that said, I have a 3,000 UV side view LEDs that are useless. So if you have any ideas for that, I would love to hear them.
Ooh, I have one. Make it output TV shut-off codes.
Oh, really? For UV?
Yeah, you can use a UV LED. You just need the shutdown code, like TV began.
Oh,
The project
but
by MH.
IR, UV, IR, UV.
It's IR, UV. It doesn't matter for a lot of people.
One of those invisible ones.
yeah. I was like,
If it's IR, even better.
It's
But if it's only UV, you can see if you can trigger some remotes.
yeah, because I had some ideas. The reason why I bought them was because I, through like just experimentation, I had shined a black light that I got like this giant like 100 LED UV light to try to find cat pee stains. But then it became like, let me just shine it on random stuff. And I happened to shine it onto a PCB and it literally glowed. And I was like, what? That's awesome.
Nice.
How do I make it do that? And so I spent a bunch of money on those LEDs. And then it turned out that it doesn't really work the way I was hoping for it to work. And let me show you what that looks like, actually, just so everyone can see why I decided that was worth the effort. Actually,
I think David did some.
that.
David Watts did some experiments with the. Where are you? There you are. Wait, solo layout.
So it's like that's what it looks like if you shine a UV light. I'm actually wondering if I got that somewhere. Yeah, I do. Actually, one sec. I can do a live demo on that.
I've got an off-stream quote which is really good. That is, hot glue is nerd lube.
Ooh.
I think that's everyone loves a bit of hot glue.
Oh, let's. I can't
Hey.
find my mouse again.
If you know how to use it.
Let's see. So it's like here's Bear FR4 giant UV light. Let me turn this light off so it's actually shows up.
Nice. That's
Nice.
cool.
So that looks really neat. It makes this like nice little glow. But what I wanted to do was continue showing stuff from the back. And what I realized is that when you do that, it just looks like a white LED. It doesn't do the effect at all. You could scatter it across the surface and kind of get the effect. And actually, you can see it pretty well on the back too.
Nice.
And it's like this really neat green. Osp has their 4-layer boards are like white, and it actually shows up really cool on those boards. But unfortunately, the light when when it's a side view LED and you, of course, it's sitting level to the board, it just literally just scatters across the top. It doesn't get the effect you want or anything like that. So it is what it is. I've held on to the roll because I figure I'll figure some use for them at some point. But it's like neat little experimentation and like doing things that honestly you're never supposed to do with them in the first place. Like, you know, that's where I have a lot of fun with this. Actually, it just occurred to me I could have done that with Steve's little forum thing.
All right. I forgot earlier I was muted, but if you plan to do more of like resin printing for your badges, it's quite worth it to contact these prototyping fabs in China.
Mm-hmm.
They often have a lot of resin printers, and it's very, very cheap to have resin prints.
So resin prints are cheap.
It's very cheap, yeah, because we're prototyping, and it's very fast turnaround too. So it takes them like 2 days to do this, and they also got some engineering resins that are way cheaper than the stuff that you get from Formax,
Right.
where he works. And they are really tough if you have like mechanical ideas or something. So if
That's good to know.
Check
I got
that
a
out.
little I last year when I was doing Arc Badge, so you see it's got this 3D printed spacer I put in there.
Mhm.
And my original idea, before I settled on having the post for to also act as like a place to snap your lanyard into, was I was going to get them I was going to get them laser cut acrylic from China. And it ended up being for the quantity I needed, like $3,000, and I was like, oh, okay, I could literally buy I could really well. I mean, it's really heavy too. Acrylic's not super light, and it is still coming from China. I mean, resin's way lighter than acrylic is.
Also, the shipping cost was so expensive.
Well, the shipping wasn't cheap, but it was like $3,000 plus shipping on top of that.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, so I guess this kind of stuff's really expensive in general. So for some stuff, I don't consider outsourcing, because like in the past I looked at something sort of similar and ended up being just prohibitively expensive anyway. That's actually what sends me down the path of like doing some of the weird stuff I do is like you could never get a fab to do the hot glue thing, right? That's not practical. But ironically, the whole reason I switched to side view LEDs was so that I could use a refill oven to make badges quicker. Because last year and this year, all my projects were like this with actual SMD components. The first year, I made 1,000 boards altogether. They all had at least 2 LEDs. Some had 8, and I hand soldered every single one of them. That's a lot of LEDs to hand solder. So it's really just me trying to like, and also like just figuring out, again, like it's a learning experience. The first year I hand soldered everything. The following, which is like this bender is me abusing 1204 LEDs. Come on, focus. 1204 LEDs soldered upside down. And you can see those giant solder balls to make that work.
Too slow.
So you can see those are regular 1204 size, 1206, excuse me, 1204 side view. And you just have those like giant solder balls holding them on. And what's actually kind of funny is but learning how to do stuff like that allowed me to do like really weird stuff. So like this guy right here looks like my normal stuff, but it's actually an 0807. It won't really show up that well even on my own camera. But it's actually an 0807 random flashing RGB soldered sideways, and then using the hot glue to act as like a stabilizer, not only to just disperse the light, but also to act as a stabilizer to support it so it won't fall down or anything like that. And at DEF CON, these were given out at DEF CON for free last year, and there is photos on the internet of me with one eye because sand scratched my eye the first day I was in Vegas. So I couldn't see out of my left eye, which is, of course, my dominant eye, the entire trip. And I was with one eye at a table in our hotel room soldering 0807 LED sideways. And it ended up becoming like a competition. I didn't mean for it to be, but then like I think it was like Drew from Osp was like, I bet I could do that. I'm like, well, yeah, it's really easy. Come over here and I'll show you. And I showed him how to do it. And then he was like, okay, I can't do this. I don't know how you do it. And then I was like, no, it's really easy. And I did like 100 badges like really quickly. Because it was just one LED, so it's really a lot quicker. But then it like became like this weird thing of like, hey, who's a little drunk and can solder one LED wrong and still work? Because actually the hard part was making sure you didn't fry the LED while doing it. I actually should do some. I should show people how to do that on a YouTube video. It's a sin against soldering, frankly.
No, it's not. I mean, soldering LEDs upside down. I did that. Yeah.
So I got recently. Is this if this focuses? Come on.
Was that
it's
the RGB side view? Oh, no.
Reverse mount. Yes.
Oh yeah, those are for. I've primarily seen those in keyboards. Corsair loves.
Oh, but another weird thing. Very cursed. Oh, come on. Normally focus works so well on this camera, but today it's very cursed. It's like what for my hub, because I also had the idea of like doing the whole both thing. This is
Yeah.
USB-A, but also reversible, if you can see that.
Wow.
So you can plug the
That's
USB-A
nice.
in both ways.
Is it still USB 3?
No, it's USB 2. It's both USB
Okay.
2. These are for chargers, I think, actually. These
Yeah.
new chargers where you have like both of them. It's just,
Oh.
I don't know. I had to get it because it's just weird.
That's cool.
But-
That's cool.
Too expensive to actually
work.
put in the lab.
Yeah. Actually,
Aw.
one of the best parts about streaming
Feels a
and
bit-
assembling stuff is they can see you when you screw up. I ripped off the first one I made. I wasn't paying attention and I was just unplugging and plugging it in, and then I went to go plug it back in. I was like, wait a minute. Why is the plug on the oh? So then they get to watch me fix it
Oh.
live. Oh.
Classic.
That's fun though. It's always fun watching someone solve a problem they created themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through my box and I have at least 4 batches of yours. Well, this is one of the failure boards that you were handing out
Yep.
on SuperCon. And I think that's the 4-layer version of the
Yep,
Shift
that's the 4-layer.
thing.
Those are the ones I gave out. I didn't give out any 2-layer ones.
Yeah. So Drew also visits my hack space from time to time. So sometimes he just hands me stuff.
Yeah.
I think I should have the
I also have those
that
cats
should-
somewhere.
Yeah, I make all those I do for free and fun. Oh yeah, Koopa.
I'm so jealous.
And I do that
Leave
mostly
them
as a
alone.
brownie point generator because it ends up because then they could use it as swag to give out at places and things like that. So which is what like our try not to knock my camera over here. That's what the Lucky Mass Oshcat one was for, which is actually a remix of the first Lucky Oshcat I did.
right.
Oh shit! Really expensive camera just hit the floor. But that's also but that's another tool, introductory tool, because they always are really simple. They always use 1, maybe 2 LEDs, and it's supposed to be a not necessarily a learn to solder kit. My tripod just broke.
Shit.
But that's the end of that one. But it's meant to be a demonstration, and it doubles as and the back of yours probably shows it better than the After Dark version, but it doubles as a stress test for their manufacturing. Because like these are really, really, really complicated silk screens. They're really tight tolerances and things like that. And actually, in this one, I did it a little too close. It's not really showing up because honestly, you can't see it really anyway. There's a version of it that's shared openly. But that's supposed to. But the whole point is like if he gives these out to people, they see it and they go, "Oh, that's really cool," and then they look me up on Twitter, and then hopefully that sets them down a path of doing some neat PCB art themselves. What I actually really enjoy seeing, and I've seen a couple of examples of this, is someone who is a electrical engineer by trade, and they've designed thousands of PCBs, and then they start adding little Easter eggs to their boards after seeing Badger, because they get like, oh, that's a really cool idea to just fill some space and things like that. Because normally like a commercial PCB, there's no room for that kind of thing, and why would there be? But if you're already making like a 2-sided board and the other side is mostly just for through hole, but you still have to put some legend on it, then screw it, have some fun and fill up the space with something. I've actually seen people use it to do things like another way to differentiate more than one version, more than one revision, other than just, this is revision 1.25 that's somewhere on the corner of the board, but like literally the whole back is a different pattern, so that you can quickly, when you're quickly grabbing a board off the bench, go, nope, not that one because that's too old or whatever. I've seen.
I like when badges have like documentation and comments on the board itself. It's like, use this pin if you want to do this and that, or hey, this is I2C, and you can connect someone something like that. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, those are really cool. And yeah, and they keep mentioning Boldport in the chat, and I didn't know about them or him, I'm not sure, or her, until after I started doing stuff. But yeah, their stuff is incredible. They're actually they work exclusively with a fab in Europe who allows them to do some really creative stuff, like using multiple solder masks and things like that, which is stuff that you can get China to do. It varies by board house. I think Seed Studio is one of the more flexible ones in that regard. PCBWay, I've seen do stuff, but when I go and ask them to do it, they go, "No, we don't do that." I'm like, "But I've literally got a board with your logo on it. Come on, you literally did it." And but you know, and like PCB Cart, I believe, is another one that if you want to do weird colors, we'll do weird colors. But I could talk for hours on why weird colors can be actually more of a detriment than a help. But I won't get into that right now.
Someone was asking what Dave Darko was up to.
Yeah, I feel so bad when I'm the host. I don't want to interrupt people and say, "So now it's my turn."
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's just we crossed 2.5 hours, and we normally aim for 1.5 hours, I guess. So I was checking the time. I was like, "But it's so interesting." And, yeah,
it is. But we also want to know what you have been up to.
Absolutely.
Right. So. Let me just find my mouse. There we go. So when you see this, you basically see what I have done like the last month or even longer now. I decorated and tried to organize things and designed little trays to put in the PCBs that I have designed and don't fall out. And then little tray things for the tray and printed that. And then I was like, hey, why don't I design something to put in all my Osp stickers? And some are missing. I think the first series, I'm not sure where my notebook is, but I glued the first Osp stickers on my notebook. And then I ran out of space, and now it's, yeah, I have all these stickers, but on my notebook. But anyways, this is a laser cut frame, and there's an acrylic paint, acrylic sheet on there, so they don't fall out. And I even found one of the old school stickers to put here. And yeah, I was kind of frustrated because I glued on the frame to hold the stickers on the wrong side on it. Like I was like gluing it, putting it on. I was like, oh no, why? And I actually wanted to have this 90 degrees on an angle. And when I was holding them, I was like, okay, I can't put in the stickers the right way, so they would be 90 degrees as well. So I had to put it like that. So that was interesting. And then I just took the spray paint and went wild on it, and it kind of looks decent. Thanks.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and I like the mint green. At first, it was a bit too much mint green, but now that I've put on like the whole, the rest of it, and the tools and the badges on the breadboard thing over there, yeah, it's I really like it now. Yeah.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, thanks.
That's really neat.
And something that I did today, and we talked a bit about crafting and how things sometimes work together, or we learn from people that share things that they did. One of those topics was printing on textiles, where you basically print a layer and then add, I don't know, like a very not fine meshed textile, and then you keep on printing, and then you have something that's 3D printed and connected to your textiles. And I thought it would be interesting to print with TPU on it, so you get something very flexible on that mesh, and then you can sew it onto other textiles, and eventually end up. Oh, that's the more rigid version. This one is a bit more flexible because. No, you don't, Alexa. Stop.
German Alexa. Oh no.
Yeah, that's weird. I can't tell her
And
to.
it plays Alanis Morissette.
Why
Fill it
now?
with fire.
Wow.
I put
The
mine in
whole
the
time
drawer.
I was saying like Alex did this, Alex did that. No, yeah. All right. So did it actually play? I didn't hear it. Did we
No.
get
Yeah.
Alanis Morissette?
Something. No,
Thank you.
she's silent.
Isn't that ironic?
Oh, nice. I
Thank
got
you. Great. All right. So I was telling about the layers. This is a bit too thick. There were too many layers. This is basically 4 layers of TPU. It's like super flexible. And then you can basically make a mask that looks a bit weird, like a Karen mask, but you have to imagine that there's a red textile sitting below it, and you have a Spider-Man mask, and it's very 3D-ish surface. So yeah, whenever I learn to sew something, I get a Spider-Man mask.
Hello.
Yeah. That's what hackerspaces are for, when they have sewing machines, I guess. Well, yeah. Yeah. I see that Stephen is posting a link to David Shorey,
Yeah.
the Instagram. He's basically, I don't know if he's like the inventor of it, but he surely is the guy that brought it into the maker scene, or the
Definitely the
like a
most prolific
dating.
user of it.
His dragon scales and mermaid things are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. That's the bottle of
Sophie
alcohol
was
that I was
about a lot
drinking.
of, printing on
Yeah.
fabric and
We're
stuff.
already asking.
Yeah, I saw the dress that she was making at the Supercon. It wasn't a
Yeah,
full
that was cool.
wearable dress back then, but yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
it was,
kind of
she
an
could wear
armor
it,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, they were trading notes for 3 hours. But for I think it was technically the day before SuperCon. But that's when I met Dave and Sophie at, and it was I just stood there.
Yeah,
and
they
listened to
nerded
them
out.
go on. It was awesome. Awesome. And Dave
Yeah.
kept pulling out all these like different like dragon scales and all these different examples he had with them. It was just incredible.
Yeah. All right. I think we're skipping the quiz that I totally have prepared for us because it took so long. And yeah,
Yeah, it's getting late.
Yeah, it's late.
it is late. Yeah, it's not getting late. It's almost 1 here.
Yeah. Sorry, it's only 7 at night here, not even 7 here. So sorry.
Right. So
We're
no,
on
that's
that
fine.
also.
We still have 45 people watching, so it can't be that bad. But
Maniacs.
Thanks for listening to me ramble.
sure, it was interesting. I mean, the next time you'll know. Yeah, you're the next host, as
Yeah.
far as we
Yeah,
know. So you
I
will
volunteered to be
know how it
triggered.
is. Yeah.
Hooray!
You will know how it feels when you're the host and you're waiting for everyone to finish. Or you just start and then no one. No.
Yeah, no,
Welcome
I
to the
will,
Twinkle Twinkie show.
I will have to go last. It'll be a requirement.
Welcome to the meet show.
And then like I'm gonna have to like set up like a clock. It's like a countdown. You get 10 minutes. It starts blinking red at me when it's counting down.
It's also a running thing, running gag here for MakerCast that whenever I'm on the show, then someone is taking my time, like BitLooney did. He was rambling on. I was like, my time. But yeah, no, it's fine. As long as we all have a conversation and can ask questions, I think we did just that, and I had fun.
That's nice.
I got a bit tired, but it was fun. Yeah. All
I'm
right,
glad to be
cool.
here.
So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Thank you all.
Then Yeah.
So it was a
Thanks
nice
everyone
evening.
for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to
Thank
all the
you.
guests.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Stephen, that you prepared the graphics. And I'll shut up now. Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Sleep.
Bye.
People.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye.
Best.
Ooh, nice.